Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic for you today? Let's do it. What's something that's happened to you only once that you can't explain? Please remember to like, share, comment, hype, listen and ask for shoutouts, and subscribe. A year or two after my partner passed, a day came along where I was really wanting his chicken noodle soup. He never taught me how to make it and didn't have a recipe. I was craving it so bad. The very next day, an old co-worker who I hadn't spoken to in a long time called me up saying she'd made chicken noodle soup and had a bunch left over, and if I would like her to bring me some. She could have made any kind of food. She could have done it a week prior or after, but just so happened to be the day after I really was jonesing for it. Spooky. Just want to comment about one thing. Even though there are multiple, I just have to think about it a bit more. This one came to mind because it was the most recent. It happened last month. I'm a private caregiver, nursing assistant, aide, etc. I do private work now because working independently is much better than working for crappy hospitals and nursing homes. Anyway, I was caring for an elderly couple in their 90s and loved them very much. Over 3 years I was with them 7 days a week, holidays. I literally mean every single day for over 3 years. I grew very close to both of them. The husband is who I was actively caring for because the wife was pretty much fully independent until the last 6 months I was with them. She found she had cancer and went downhill fast in November and December, so I was there multiple times a day, 7 days a week, to help her out as well as her husband. She had a fall, was sent home, and had another fall that night 4 hours after I left her for the night. That one is what landed her back in the hospital and in ICU with a brain bleed. I was with her bedside as soon as I got the call from her family member. They kinda knew she wouldn't make it, so I stayed with her for some time before I eventually went home. It was difficult for me to sleep because I truly do love her, like she's my own grandmother. I drifted off at about 10:30. Once I'm out, I'm usually out, unless for some reason I wake to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. I awoke at 11:03 exactly, and what woke me was her voice, plain as day, like she was right beside me, and she said my name. That was it. Just my name in a gentle voice. I wasn't dreaming at all, at least not that I can remember, but I do remember hearing it. I'm 100% positive. The following morning, I texted her family member to let them know I'd be back at the hospital to visit, and she said, "Don't come to the hospital. She passed last night at 11. Still have no idea how to explain that, but I know what I heard with 100% certainty. The night before my mom's funeral, I was panicking because I didn't have photos of my brother. He had been estranged, and I wanted him to have equal pictures in the slideshow as the rest of us. I was up all night editing and worrying about this. I had an old iPhone that had bricked and was in my desk drawer for years. One day it simply stopped working, so I got a new phone and tossed the old one in the drawer and didn't think about it again. Well, while editing the slideshow video, I kept getting a pop-up that another one of my devices was in use. I kept hitting ignore until it dawned on me it was the old phone that turned on. I immediately grabbed it. It was now fully turned on, and found videos and photos of my brother on there. I was able to add him to the slideshow. I've tried to tell the story before and people never believe me, but it really happened. Was a backseat passenger in a car traveling back from a conference at night in rural Ireland when the driver freaked out at some light in the sky, so we all stuck our heads to the window to see what was up. It was like a lighthouse beam traveling at a speed across the night sky, and it engulfed everything with each wave so that it lit up the underbelly of the cloud for miles. It came in pulses, and we were all silently staring at it when the car started shuddering, like the engine was about to quit. The headlights dimmed and the tape deck slowed to a slur, Then the car just stopped dead in the middle of nowhere. We all got out and saw that the front tire was flat, so we pushed her over to the side of the road and began the process of changing the wheel. No one really spoke or said anything, but the light had stopped at that point, and we busied ourselves getting the car back on the road. It started first turn like nothing had ever happened. We continued on our journey, and no one said another thing about it. We were laying on the floor watching a movie and something caught my eye. It was a clothing hanger levitating, moving up and down. I told my friend to look, and as soon as she did, it stopped. So it started happening again, and I whispered at her to look over and she saw it. We both screamed and ran to the other room. I'll never be able to make sense of it. Around 35 years ago, I went into our downstairs basement, and an old unplugged television set resting on the shelf was displaying a faint, alternating image of what looked like a man with some kind of plastic bag over his head, holding a pistol up to his head, and a really skinny guy holding a guitar outside accompanied by a fuzzy radio station-like noise. Seriously bizarre and frightening experience. I remember being in disbelief and going up to the TV set to check if it was warm, and it was not. This was a TV that hadn't been used in 10 or so years. I lost an earring while driving in my car. I tore my car apart several times looking for it because I had a lot of sentimental attachment to that thing, but no luck. I kept the other one because I had a feeling I'd find it again. A couple of months later, I'm rummaging in the back of my under-the-stairs storage area, a room that I genuinely had not opened in 9-ish months, because it mostly was just wrapping paper, paint, and extra brooms in there. And I find my earring in a box of Christmas bows and tape. I lived alone at the time, so I have no clue whatsoever how it got in there, but I was just happy to have my earring back. Went to the bar one night with a buddy. I think we were 19-ish. Got super drunk early and neither of us could drive. Bartender was a friend and she offered to call her brother to take us home. Woke up in my bed the next day around noon to my phone ringing. It was my mom asking if I was feeling okay. Asked if I remembered coming home last night. I admitted I did not recall. She told me that she certainly did and wasn't too happy. She explained that at 4 a.m. she woke up to someone pounding on the front door. When she turned on the porch light and looked out the small window instead of the peephole door, she saw me and I was clearly distraught. She opened the door and I took off running down the street, scared or spooked about something. She had to chase me down and bring me inside. I apologized, and as I was hanging up to call my buddy and ask what happened, she asked me if I knew why my hat and keys were in the front yard. Called my friend, asked if he recalled getting home. He didn't, but verified his car was parked outside, and when we finally asked our bartender friend when her brother took us home, we were told I was dropped off a little before 11 p.m.
So what do you think this one is? Was it just time lost to little alcohol and revelry, or maybe an alien abduction? Who knows? But I like this collection of stories today. Hope you guys are doing well, and we will see you again tomorrow.
Back in 2007, I got into a car accident on the highway. I'd been sideswiped by a truck. After pinballing through traffic, my car came at a stop in the middle of the highway. There was a semi heading right toward my car, and if I had tried to get to the shoulder, I would have hit someone. I remember thinking that was it. That's how I'm going to die. It seemed like I blacked out and woke up in the shoulder in the car. I have absolutely no memory of moving the car. It's like someone just picked up the car and put it on the shoulder. I'm sure the adrenaline kicked in, and I had driven the car there, but the way it happened, it felt like it wasn't me, like I didn't do it. There was resigned to dying, but something had other plans. The passenger in the car had the same experience. No memory of the car moving to the shoulder. When I was about 5 years old, I went to the beach with my family and played in the ocean. I had just gotten the hang of swimming and felt brave enough to venture into the deeper part. Well, I ended up slipping off a dip in the sand that I couldn't see, and before I knew it, I had no bottom to touch with my feet. I was at the mercy of the current, and it was pulling me under. I struggled against every wave that came and shoved me down into the water, swimming up to catch some air at the surface, before being tossed back down underneath the waves. I was drowning. But then I felt someone lift me up. I was small at the time, so I was familiar with being held. It felt like a tall man had picked me up from the water and dragged me ashore. I was shaking and unsure of what had just happened to me, but I heard this man's voice ask me, "You okay?" I just nodded, then his presence walked away. Then I stood up and ran back to my father, who I saw was approaching. I assumed that man was probably a lifeguard. So about 20 years later, I'm talking and reminiscing about the old days with my father. I bring up the time I almost drowned at the beach, and how I had to be pulled out by the lifeguard. My father, in response, gives me a puzzled look. He tells me that he doesn't remember me nearly drowning or the lifeguard. All he says was that he had been watching me from the shoreline, then I disappeared, and when he looked over at the sand, there was walking towards him. He said that in a very few seconds, he couldn't see me in the water and he panicked. But then he saw me safely on the shore and assumed I just swam back inland. But he never recalled a lifeguard or anyone rushing in to go save a struggling child. I just reappeared like nothing happened. To this day, I have no idea who pulled me out of the water or how I otherwise didn't drown that day. Best guess is that some random guy swimming near me spotted my distress, picked me up, and dropped me off at the shoreline before somehow leaving before my father could catch sight of him. But it's still really weird, because I vividly remember being rescued, but there was no evidence, according to my father, of anything being amiss, especially since my father would have been looking for those kinds of things, given he just lost sight of his child. It's also weird to think about how none of this would have gotten much scrutiny if I hadn't casually brought it up to my father 20 years later. I would have gone on thinking a lifeguard saved me, and he would have just kept remembering that I somehow swam ashore. Wild. One day when I was really little and playing in my new playhouse in my yard, I crawled through the tunnel to get to the other side of it and saw what looked like a cartoonish giant bee with human eyes. I don't know what it actually was. Maybe it was a different animal that got covered in paint or just so happened to be black and yellow, but I swear I did see something. I know it wasn't a dream because I ran inside screaming and told my parents about it, and they remembered that day too, but didn't see it themselves. Maybe I was just hallucinating somehow. Maybe I didn't see it right. But I know something was there, and that I did see something creepy that day. I don't know what, but I know damn well it was not a dream. Went on a family vacation to Canada. My dad took me and my 3 siblings to a funhouse that connected with a shop at the end. I didn't know this until much later. My older brother and sister asked to go back through, but I didn't hear this. And my younger sister followed him out of the funhouse at the end. I was still playing with one of the fortunes, and when I turned back, I was totally alone in the room, lit with only a black light and glowing shapes. It was completely quiet, and I couldn't see anything. I got terrified. I went back a feature or two and was crying alone in the tilted room. A family walked by but didn't do anything. Still don't know why you would leave a crying child under 10 in a funhouse alone, and I sat there wondering how I am going to get out. I put my head down, and I swear to God as my witness, I lifted my head up, and I was at the beginning. I didn't walk around, I didn't hear, feel, or see anything. I was 3/4 of the way into the funhouse, and magically, I was at the beginning where my older brother siblings were. To this day, I have no idea how that happened. My partner received a really good watch as a gift. Within a couple of weeks, it stopped working. We were able to take it back and get it working again, but within a couple of weeks it inexplicably stopped working. The people who sold it to us couldn't explain it either, and they couldn't fix it. So they gave us our money back. She eventually inherited her grandmother's Rolex, which was in beautiful shape and had been fully functional for 50 years. She started wearing it, and it stopped working. We took it to the most reputable watchmaker in our city and asked them to have a look at it. They looked at it and couldn't explain it. So they tuned it up, made it sure that it was working, and gave it back. You can imagine what happened next. 3 times we had to visit them to make that Rolex work, and each time we came back after a couple of weeks and it wasn't working. It's never worked since. When we went to Vienna for our holiday once, she found a watch that she loved. It had been lovingly restored by a professional watchmaker, and he guaranteed his work. You can imagine what happened. It stopped working within a week of us returning to North America. My partner can't wear watches. They don't work for her. I was in my early 20s spending a weekend visiting friends that lived in another state. She had this great place that was on the top floor of an old house that had been divided into apartments. The second night, a few of us were hanging out, chatting, playing cards and games. Eventually, we got ready for bed. I took the couch, and my friend pulled her mattress into the living room so that we could all keep talking and sleep close. I remember falling asleep on my side, seeing their silhouettes lit from the moonlight from the window behind them. I felt so cozy. Sometime later, I woke up. I thought the blanket was over my head because I couldn't see my friends. As I was trying to make sense of what was going on, my eyes adjusted, and what I saw was someone standing directly in front of my face, like parallel to my head. They could have felt my breath close. If I had shifted my eyes, I could have looked up at their torso and head, but I was paralyzed. They were wearing plaid bottoms, and they weren't moving. I could now see the depth of the room and my friends sleeping on the other side of these legs. I was frozen in fear. I remember thinking that if I just closed my eyes, maybe this wouldn't know I was awake. I wish I could remember exactly what I was thinking, but it's been so long since. I do know that I felt it wasn't human. I can't explain why. It's just what I felt. I shut my eyes eventually, fell asleep, to my surprise, did wake up in the morning. I can't remember if I told my friend about the next morning or a few weeks later. I remember not wanting to scare her. The experience made for fun lore among our friends group. I don't know if anyone believed me, but they humored me and we valued and laughed about it for years. Fast forward to a few years shy of a decade, one paramedic and life changes later. This friend and I are reconnecting and now live in the same city. She invites me over to lunch to see her house and meet her dog. We had a wonderful time, and I'm getting ready to leave. As I'm about to head out the door, her mail is dropped off and she goes, "I ordered this photo book forever ago and it's finally here. I really think you'd like it." Of course I stay, any excuse to stay longer. She makes some tea, and we crack open the book. It's beautiful. She explains that the photographer is the granddaughter of the family who lived in the house where her old apartment was before it was divided into separate units. There are so many thoughtful photos of the city, community, and neighborhood. I think, wow, what timing. What are the odds that I'm here for this? So special. What happens next still makes me nauseous. She turns the page and we're looking at her old living room, except it's not her living room. It's a bedroom. And there's a hospital bed with a dying man in plaid pajama pants. It turns out the grandfather of this photographer died in that room however many years ago. The portrait is actually so touching, but at this point my stomach was in my toes and also in my eyeballs. We were both completely freaked out. I'm still on the fence about ghosts, although I'm sure I saw one. I hate to speculate because this was a man that was and is loved. If anything, It makes for a good story to one day tell my nieces and nephews. I have two things that are relatively small, but I still feel like they stand out. Though I'm sure it was a coincidence, but a few years ago my grandpa was passing away from Alzheimer's, and he had gotten toward the end and wasn't able to recognize us. We knew he was going to pass soon, and we were all mourning him. Around the same time, a stray dog showed up at our house. He'd been out running around so much that his paw pads were raw here and there. He's legitimately the sweetest dog I've ever met, and we ended up keeping him. We did try to find his owner first, through and through, the chip he had, and we found out his name was Harry. Harry was Grandpa's nickname. It felt like fate, and in a way it felt like when my grandpa passed, he sent Harry to us. Around the time my grandpa passed, a cardinal bird started hanging out in our backyard too. It would sing all morning while perched in the tree and looking right at the house. There are some different beliefs about cardinals. My favorite one is that when you see a cardinal, it's because a loved one who passed is thinking of you. Not me, but my mom. 2008 was a very hard year for my family and I. Due to the 2008 financial crisis, my family and I lost everything we had. Job, house, health insurance, savings, even our will to continue living. At one point, we began preparations for our inevitable homelessness. We knew we were going to end up sleeping in the streets, and were trying to prepare as much as possible for it. One day, my parents took my brother and I to the park. While my dad was playing with us, my mom cried alone and in silence. While she had her head down, a woman approached her, touched her shoulder, and told her of a place that was hiring, and could hire my parents right away. The woman walked away, and my mom never saw her again. The next day, my parents went to the place the woman had mentioned, and they did indeed end up getting hired. Thanks to that woman, my parents found a job and were able to afford a cheap motel room for a few months, until we found a tiny but affordable house to move to. We never told anyone of our financial struggle. No friends, no family, no strangers. How could that random lady have known what was going on with us? My mom truly believed she was an angel sent by God. There was no other way of explaining it. I was playing cards with my cousin in my basement. We had been playing for hours at that point. We were playing with one of those games where you need all 4 cards in your hand to win. We kept playing and playing until we realized neither of us could win because we didn't have all the cards in the deck anymore. We hadn't moved the cards or even stood up from the spot we were playing, and we had played multiple games where we'd need all the cards present. We shuffled the cards, laid them out, figured out which ones were missing. We checked each card to make sure they weren't stuck to each other. Then we got up and looked everywhere, in couch cushions, behind the stereo, underneath everything, and we couldn't find the cards. We were baffled because there was no way we could have lost them. We had been sitting in the same spot playing with the same deck. Nothing had changed except the game itself. I decided to reshuffle the cards and lay them out one last time, and there they were on the top of the deck. Neither of us had touched the cards once we started searching the basement high and low. It wasn't a prank my cousin played on me because she wasn't one to do that kind of thing, and we were both pretty upset that they were lost because we didn't have any more decks to play with. When we saw them right on the top of the deck, we just sat in stunned silence, so confused by what happened. We couldn't explain it, and we both felt really uncomfortable, like something was messing with us, but no one else was there. I think about it a lot. Woke up one day to my guitar playing itself. It was just one string that was being plucked, the low E, in an almost robotic but hypnotic and complex rhythm that would repeat in cycles. As I was waking up, I thought it was strange, and then as I woke up more, I realized I wasn't dreaming. It kept playing, and then I was looking at the guitar up and down to see if maybe something was touching it that would vibrate the string that way. But there was absolutely nothing touching it. I was fully awake and mystified for a good minute or two, while it still played, and I tried to come up with an explanation, but couldn't. Then I focused really hard on the string that was vibrating, and Whatever was doing it, it honestly seemed like something supernatural and intelligent. Seemed to my sense, my focus, and stopped. I kept focusing, and after a long beat, a single note on the string played. They were all on the same note, the low E string, unfretted. And then I stopped, as if it were muted. That was the weirdest thing. Nothing was touching the string at all, but there were mutes in the playing, like someone was putting their thumb on the string. It wasn't just ringing naturally, and it was soft, like someone playing with their knuckle, not a nail or a pick, but too fast and complex of a rhythm and perfect every time. It was the first thing in my life which really made me believe in the supernatural. Even though I couldn't prove it to anyone else, it was enough proof for me. In high school, we went on a ski trip. I went on the T-bars to ascend the hill. For those who don't know, the T-bars are basically little seats on a rope that is attached to the cable, being moved by a giant pulley with machines on the top and bottom of the hill that rotate the cable, so one half is always going up and one half is always going down, going through the machine to transition from one state to the other. When you're not sitting on the seat, it automatically climbs up the rope to sit snug against the cable out of the way. So I'm on the T-bar and I'm approaching the top of the hill. I get ready to get off, but I find, oh no, the T-bar got jammed in my jacket. I can't pull myself off. In my panic to try and free myself, I accidentally move around the emergency stop cable that's designed to stop the pulley in such a situation. I'm on the ground being dragged toward this giant machine rotating the cable at this point. Thankfully, a technician sees me and stops the device. But here's where the weird part comes in. I'm on the up section of the cable, right? Well, the T-bar suddenly comes free, and I swear to you, it goes straight to the down section of the cable. Never going around the pulley machine like it should. Just completely switching to the other side of the track in a straight line. It legitimately looked like someone froze time, pulled the T-bar loose, then grabbed a different T-bar from the going down section of the cable and brought it back down to me before unfreezing time. It's supposed to go around the pulley machine before going down. I swear to you, it didn't do that. Maybe it's a bad memory. Maybe I was delirious from panic and adrenaline. Maybe I just convinced myself it was real because I wanted to have a UFO experience really badly. But whatever the case, that's a moment I still can't fully explain. A few months ago, I rescued my cat. I had been planning on getting a cat for like a year, but I finally decided to bite the bullet. I'm also allergic to cats, however, I typically would forget to take my allergy medication. One day I had planned to go on a walk with a friend. Before I left, I remembered to take my allergy medicine. Well, I got to the park, sat down, and waited for my friend, and got bit by 2 black ants. The bites were weirdly painful, but since they were just black ants, I wasn't that concerned. A few minutes later, my friend had gotten to the park and we started our walk. I started feeling really off, fatigued, foggy, confused, etc. I tried to brush it off to the heat. I live in the southeast US, and this was over the summer. However, I then started having physical symptoms as well. My heart was racing. My beats per minute were 170 sitting down. I was dizzy, nauseous, and sweating. My friend called an ambulance, but by the time they arrived, I'd pretty much recovered without any medical intervention. Spoke to the paramedics and explained that I didn't have any allergies, intolerances, etc. Ultimately, I was bit by an invasive ant that, when aggravated, bites and releases a venom that instigates anaphylaxis. If I hadn't taken that allergy medicine that day, I would have been done. My kitty saved my life. I refused to learn death dates of close family members or friends. I would just rather remember good things and good days and not the end. Well, On what I later found out was my 10th anniversary of my grandpa passing away, I was staying in a Motel 6 and just randomly burst awake with immediate sadness. I got this overwhelming feeling that made me immediately think about my grandpa, which made me begin to cry. I then heard that noise, like someone threw something across the room, and right after that, suddenly the off TV on the other side of the room made a pop noise. I immediately began thinking about how much of a prankster my grandpa was in life, and even being in the newspaper for keeping up with a 50-year-long anonymous prank that was revealed on the final prank between he and the person he was pranking, where the person he pranked got to learn the identity of who was sending him letters all along. I then got the random idea to look up my grandpa's grave to see if I could figure out where he was buried. I located his grave location online, but it was just told me where it was and didn't show me the grave itself. When I arrived, I was blown away to see that the date was the exact 10-year anniversary of him passing away. I saw his headstone for the first time, and on it said, "I get ideas, LOL." I still don't know why it happened, but my grandpa and I were close when he was alive, and he was literally my next door neighbor. I don't understand it, but I truly feel like my grandpa was somehow reaching from beyond the grave.